Welcome to Middle Life Adventures. My name's Leslie, and today we're going to take on easy handmade soap. Some of the benefits of handmade soap are that they're free from chemicals, environmentally destructive ingredients, and commercially made soaps tend to have some things that aren't necessarily skin friendly, shockingly enough. You can use a lot of things in your soap. It comes down to your personal preference. You can have some shea butter soap or goat's milk soap, natural oils. You can have honey, you can have aloe. All of those things are phenomenal on your skin and have different benefits to each of them. So it just comes down to personal preference. These handmade soaps are gentle and they have ingredients that cleanse your skin without removing natural oils, which is really important. For my soap making preferences, I prefer to do the melt and pour. I just find it's easier, keeps it simple, and it's more beginner friendly. So here we have our supplies for soap making for the melt and pour method. First things first, we have our soap melting pot. This you can get as a standalone item, or you can get in a soap making starter kit. Super handy, easy to clean, easy to use. So we have that. We have our mold that we are going to pour our melted soap into. I am particularly fond of these little inserts that go in the mold, and I'm having trouble getting out of there right now. So this is a 42 ounce mold right here, and what I've done is I've purchased a little rose insert, which makes for that beautiful kind of top on your soap when you pour it in. So there's that. We have a spatula for our melt and pour. We have essential oils that we're going to put all natural scent into our soap to make it smell absolutely amazing. I have some rubbing alcohol that we'll use to mix up our color, and we spray it in to eliminate soap bubbles in the base of our mold when we put the soap in. And we've got mica powder here. This is what we use to color our soap. This is a non-toxic mica powder. I've got some cups here that we can use to mix up our mica powder with. I have the cutting board to cut up our soap base on. And this is what we use to measure and cut our soap as the last step. So we have that, and most importantly, I've got my soap base here. Now this is a 5.2 pound goat's milk soap base. I get this on Amazon for about $38 Canadian, and I have found it to be the most value for the dollar. Soap base can be very expensive, so definitely shop around, see what you can find. This will do two 42 ounce soap bars that fill this up twice. So that's plenty of soap. Usually a 42 ounce mold like this will cut about 12 to 15 bars. So yeah, that's a lot of soap. All of the things you see here I have purchased on Amazon. I find it to be the most convenient and the most value, so that's where I choose to shop for all of my soap making supplies. So here we have our supplies. We're ready to get started. We've cut up half of that 5.2 pound bar in, and we've cubed it so that it'll evenly melt in the melting pot. So to start with, I'm just going to put the melting pot on low. You want to not boil the soap. Boiling the soap kind of changes the consistency and can make it have a bit of a scum, and it's less ideal to work with if you boil your soap. So we just kind of want to bring it up and then let it simmer a bit and then warm it up again, let it simmer. We want to gently melt it. So I'm just going to be playing back and forth with going from low to high. If you just have a small batch that you're doing, you definitely want to just stay on low. You need to be super patient for the melting process here, and don't wander away, because it's amazing how quick your soap can decide to boil in this pot. I do have a lid for it. When we make the 42 ounce bar of soap, we end up cutting cubes so much so that we have this sort of bumper crop of melt and pour base in there, so the lid doesn't even at this point fit on. That's okay though, we're just going to keep an eye on it. So whether you may or may not be able to hear it kind of starting to heat up and cook in there. This is the goat's milk soap base. So the process here is that we're going to just gently and patiently bring this up to a nice melted consistency. Then we're going to add our scent and our essential oils. We're going to add essential oils. You want to be careful how much you add, because you can, depending on the oil, some oils actually burn the skin, so you want to be very careful, very gentle. Like cinnamon and eucalyptus can really burn. So I add enough so that I've got this lovely scent, but not so much that if someone uses it, they're going to feel a bit burnt, especially children or seniors. Their skin is a little more susceptible to burning with certain essential oils, so keep that in mind. Now, so I am going to put some peppermint in. I'm going to put some eucalyptus. I'm going to be very conservative with how much I use. But I love a peppermint eucalyptus smelling soap, especially in the winter time during kind of cold and flu season. If you get the sniffles, there's just nothing better in a hot steamy shower to have that peppermint eucalyptus scent. And I find it just gives me that extra kind of clean feeling and sensation too, that nice peppermint. So we can hear that boiler really starting to pick up, and we can see the level going down as the soap starts to melt. So I'm just going to back the heat off now to the low for a little bit. It's a little hard to stir yet because it's so full in here, but we're just going to gently kind of nudge the soap around. We don't want to stir too much because that also can change the consistency of the soap too. You can see a little bit of that soap at the bottom. That base is starting to melt. This is great. I find when I make my soap, I kind of have my tunes going, and I've pulled up a chair, and it's just so fun. It's so fun to sit there and watch it melt and smell all the good smells. The goat's milk soap base smells incredible. I so enjoy it. It's just the lightest, most wonderful, gentle, fragrant smell. Something else I like to do while I'm waiting for my soap to gently melt is I will prepare my colors. So what we do is we put a little bit of rubbing alcohol. So the mica I've already gone ahead and put in the cup. Most of our soap is going to be this phenomenal turquoise color. I don't really measure. I'm kind of like a more eyeball it kind of girl. So yeah, more the merrier for me sometimes with the mica powder. We're going to give an accent to our soap with a lovely white pearl. So there's not as much in there, but there's also not going to be as much soap that we're going to be using for that color. So I'm going to add a bit of rubbing alcohol. This helps to eliminate clumps when you add your mica powder to the soap base. You can get some clumps if it doesn't mix properly, and nobody loves a clumpy soap. So I like to pre-mix with a little bit of the rubbing alcohol. You don't really want to pre-mix this too far in advance because the rubbing alcohol will evaporate and then you'll kind of be back to clumpy, lumpy a little bit. So just as you're waiting for your soap to melt, now I'm going to pop the heat back up on the melt and pour. We're just going to be kind of back and forth as we're melting our soap. This is also rubbing alcohol. I put it in the spray bottle so we can use it to spray down the mold immediately prior to pouring our soap in. How beautiful is this mica? It's just super pearlescent and shimmery and just absolutely gorgeous. I love it. I love working with the micas. I started working with micas back when I did resin projects, and I'm a bit of a glitter hound. I love shimmery things, and the mica is just the best for that. So that's That's our sort of turquoise color, all nice and pre-mixed. So perfect. We've kind of checked that off our to-do list here. We'll do the same exact thing with that white pearl now. Add a little bit of the rubbing alcohol. You don't want to go too hard with the rubbing alcohol because I found that it changes the chemistry of the mica powder with the soap in. And some of your, we got all the powders blowing around here like smoke. It changes the consistency when your soap sets, so you'll end up with kind of a whole bunch of that color floating as opposed to kind of mixing and marbling with the rest of the soap. So it's a bit of a trial and error to get it the way you want it. This looks pretty good. Look at that lovely pearlescent shimmer. Love it. This will be a fantastic accent to our bar of soap. So things to consider after we pour our soap mixture into our mold. The soap immediately begins to try to set and solidify. That's the one drawback to melt and pour soap, is that you have very limited time to work with your soap once it comes away from that heat. We're just going to give this a stir. Fantastic. So you have to work fast with your melt and pour. The cold press soap, you have way more time to do your pretty marbling designs and to set it up. The soap takes a lot longer to solidify, so that's the one drawback, but I find that with, not having to work with the lye and some of the more dangerous chemicals involved in cold press is worth me having to kind of get on with it and move quicker with the melt and pour. I prefer it to be easy peasy than kind of that longer soap preparation process that comes with the cold press. To each his own. So we're starting to boil a bit. You can see the bubbles there. I'm going to turn the heat back down to low. Just kind of making sure we don't get a skin forming on the top to superheat the soap underneath. There we go. We'll let that simmer for a second. So yeah, when you put in your kind of primary color, you want to move along with getting your soap base for your melted soap base into your secondary color. You don't want to wait too long before adding that second accent color because it will kind of not set in very well and it'll be hard to work with. So that's something to keep in mind. This looks fantastic. Oh yeah, it's starting to get kind of hard. There we go. If it looks like there's a little bit of a scum starting to happen or too many of kind of the foamy bubbles, then I will even use a little bit of the rubbing alcohol in the melt and pour itself. Just we want to get rid of the foamy stuff, to be honest. There we go. And let that settle in for a second before continuing on. Now, if you're kind of like me and you really love to make your soap pretty and to be creative with it, you can see I've got the two colors here that I've chosen. What I want to do, we'll move that over a bit. What I want to do is put the soap in for the second color before I put the main color in for my soap, because then it kind of all becomes a mush together. So look at your colors, plan out how you're going to do it. Sometimes I'll take the lid off. I've got the melting pot on low. We're going to start, whoops, my bad. We're going to add the essential oils. I've got 2 half bottles of the peppermint, so that's why I've got 3 here. Woohoo! And I've gone and forgotten my spatula far away from where my hand reaches. Here we go. Just give a gentle stir, gentle stir. Again, these 2 essential oils, or these 3 bottles of essential oils were not full, so I'm not putting 3 full bottles of essential oil. People glow in the dark if they use this soap that much. Okay, perfect. So I'm just gently stirring as we add the essential oils. Perfect. Let's get rid of this empty bottle and this empty bottle. Perfect. A little bit of the peppermint left in this one. So this is one of the only times, other than adding the color, this is the only time I will actively stir my soap like this. Now I am going to turn the heat off. I've got completely melted soap base there. Look at that. Fantastic. My apologies, I'm bumping the camera here a little bit. There we go. Okay, now, as we talked about before, I'm going to add a little bit of soap to the white pearl first before I put the main color in. So I'm going to pour some in here. Not a whole lot, just enough. There we go. Perfect. We'll give this a stir real quick, get that nice pearlescent color going on. Now, this is away from the heat, so it's going to try to start setting immediately. So we're going to give it a quick stir, like so. Set it aside. And this, of course, is our main color. So I'm going to pour a little bit of soap in here just so I can get it all. There we go. We're going to give this a mix. Oh, we're making a mess, but hey, at least it's soap, right? It'll be easy to clean. There we go. Now this is easier to pour into our main pot. Perfect. Here we go. Okay, what a beautiful color that is, eh? So again, my melting pot is actually turned off right now, but there's a lot of soap in there that's nice and warm, so it's gonna sit there and keep that kind of loose consistency for a moment or two. We're just gonna mix in that nice color. We are gonna keep kind of bothering this one because this one is off the heat, and because there's not as much there, it's going to start cooling down a lot faster. So we're about to pour into our mold, which means time to put our rubbing alcohol just to avoid soapy bubbles. There we go. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to pour into the mold. Like so. Now you see all those bubbles forming on top. We're going to take a quick spritz in a moment with that rubbing alcohol and get rid of those. We want a nice, beautiful, solid bar of soap. No bubbles. At least not until you get in the shower, right? Here we go. There we are. Ooh, making a mess. Making a mess. Pop this in the sink. And like I said, we're going to spritz those bubbles out. No bubbles. And here's our accent color. Perfect. Now, full disclosure, I made way too much accent color. There's a lot of bubbles in there too, so we're going to spray the bubbles out. Out, bubbles. Here we go. Okay. I kind of like the marble look, so I just sort of pour from one end to the other. Beautiful. Now I'm going to take my stick in. I'm going to make one pass and one pass only. Here we go. That's going to mix the two. And you'll be amazed when we unmold this tomorrow how much that one pass does. So when I make such a big bar, a 42-ounce bar of soap, I like to leave this sit for 24 hours before trying to unmold it. I find that the soap takes that long to properly cure and solidify. I don't want to risk taking the soap out early and having the middle kind of squish and pour out, if you will. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you use your essential oils, once you pour into the mold like I just have, you really want to avoid moving this mold or moving the soap around, because you run a decent risk of your essential oils and your soap base separating, which you definitely don't want on your soap, because that's a sticky, gooey disaster, to be honest. So I'm going to move this once and one time only. I'm going to move it into my soap cabinet that we opened the video with there, and I'm going to leave it alone for 24 hours, which for you will be about 5 to 10 seconds, and then we will be back to unmold this and see what it's like. Okay, it is now the next day. It's been 24 hours, and here is our soap. It's nicely cured. We topped up a little bit at the top. Once we finished filming, I realized that we didn't have enough soap in there, so I just poured a little bit extra soap so that we've got it nice and full, so we'll have some really nice sized bars out of this. So we're going to go ahead and remove the soap and the yellow mold from the holder first. There we go. So this is the soft silicone here that it's now being held in. Ooh, it looks good. So I'm just kind of loosening up around the edges. You want to be gentle because your soap is quite soft and prone to scratching easily. So we want to kind of be gentle both with the soap and with the mold. Okay, so what we're seeing at the bottom here is actually the insert, so no need to panic here. This is just the insert, so we're going to try. Now I noticed when we made this soap that the insert itself didn't actually go flush up against the edge of the mold itself. So here's where we're going to reveal that beautiful design that the insert gives us. Taking care to be gentle. Perfect. So yeah, what we'll need to do is just cut away. You can see the edge. So I'm not all that happy with this insert because it leaves us with this kind of crazy looking edge. So we'll take some time and trim that up a bit. I'm going to do that right now. It's kind of bugging my brain a bit. So I'm going to take a second, trim this up. We'll be right back. So I've trimmed 3 of the 4 sides. I'm just going to show you what I'm doing just to clean up that kind of funky edge we've got. This is a new mold to me. This was my first time using it, so lessons learned that it's a little bit wild and woolly. So I'm just taking a regular kind of paring knife, and we're just trimming away that craziness on the one side. The soap is super fresh, so it's very soft, easy to cut. Perfect. Perfect. And you can see what I mean about how the color sometimes settles in an interesting way when we mix up the color. If there's more or less of the rubbing alcohol in there, it does kind of look, it settles differently. Okay, so we've unmolded our soap. Now what we're going to do is take our cutter here. This helps us. So this is where we can measure. I like to cut 1.5 inch slices. So we'll set our bar in there. First of all, I guess we'll show you how cool this looks. Beautiful soap. Okay. back to cutting. Put it here. We're going to slide the bar in. I've pre-measured to where I like to cut it. Now you have a few choices for how to cut your soap. I prefer this kind of wavy cutter. I really like it. However, I'm going to try a new stamp for my soap slices. So to do that, I need a flat surface. So I'm just going to use this straight soap cutter. Okay. I'm going to move this slightly this way. Perfect. So, and here we go. We'll make our first cut. Okay, here we are. We've got our slice. There we go. And there you have it. There's our slice of soap there. Really cool colorations. Remember, I stirred down the center there, so that's why you're seeing that neat little marbling in the middle. We've got the white shimmery part that I put into the bottom. Beautiful. So the melt and pour soap, one of the other benefits to it is that it does not have to cure. You can actually go straight to using this soap. When I make it, I like to wrap it in wax paper. I cut the slices, I wrap in wax paper, and then I'll put in plastic just to preserve it and to prevent the soap from sweating. And we store it about room temperature. And there you have it, this gorgeous peppermint eucalyptus soap, goat's milk made, ready to use, easy peasy. Thank you so much for joining us for this video today, for this easy soap making DIY. If you liked this, please click the like button. If you'd like to see more soap making videos, please subscribe. We'll be making soap here, easy handmade DIY soap on this channel going forward. And we may even try a few other soap making adventures as time goes by. Thanks so much, and we'll see you again soon.